1526 to 2024. This is the period that we are going to cover today in this video. 1526 was the year in which Babur established a dynasty known as the Mughal dynasty. This dynasty was established by Babur in 1526 after defeating Delhi Sultan Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat. First battle of Panipat. Thus was established the Mughal dynasty. It went up to 1857. I repeat, Mughal dynasty established by Babur in the year 1526 extended up to 1857. This period can be divided into two. 1526 to 1707 and 1707 to 1857. I repeat, the Mughal dynasty established by Babur in the year 1526 after the Battle of Panipat extended up to 1857, but this total period can be divided into two stages. That is the first stage from 1526 to 1707 and the second stage from 1707 to 1857. This first stage is known as the period of Great Mughals. Great Mughals. And the second stage is known as the period of Later Mughals. Later Mughals. So here in 1526, Babur established a dynasty and it extended up to 1857, but it can be divided into two stages, that is 1526 to 1707 and from 1707 to 1857. During the Great Mughal period, rulers like the founder Babur, second Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and finally Aurangzeb. These were the 6 great rulers of Mughal dynasty who ruled India from the year 1526 to 1707. It was in the year 1707 the last great ruler of Mughal dynasty, Aurangzeb, died. And from this year, the decline of Mughal dynasty set in. Mughal dynasty began to disintegrate after the death of Aurangzeb in the year 1707. So we say the period from 1707 to 1857 is the period of later Mughals, or the period of declining of the Mughal dynasty. So Aurangzeb died and 3 of his sons fought for the throne, and finally Bahadur Shah first, he captured power and he became the first of the later Mughal rulers. And so many other rulers came to power, and finally Bahadur Shah II became the ruler by the end of this period. And in 1857 there was a revolt that we call the Great Revolt of 1857, which was suppressed by the British, and British captured Bahadur Shah and transported him to Rangoon and put an end to the Mughal dynasty. I repeat, in the year 1707, the last of the great Mughal ruler, Aurangzeb died. After his death, 3 of his sons fought for the throne, and one of them, that Bahadur Shah first, became the successor of Aurangzeb, but he was not a capable ruler, and Mughal dynasty began to disintegrate since the period of Bahadur Shah first. Even though Mughal dynasty extended up to 1857, it was in a disintegrating mode. Finally, in the year 1857, after suppressing the Great Revolt of 1857, British East India Company transported Bahadur Shah to Rangoon and ended Mughal dynasty. Thus Mughal dynasty came to an end in the year 1857. So this is the period 1526 to 1857 was the period of Mughal dynasty in India. Now we have seen the period of Mughal dynasty or Mughal rule in India from 1526 to 1857. Now we go back to the period of 1498. I told you in previous video, it was in 1498 the first European navigator Vasco da Gama reached India at a place called Calicut. Calicut thus inaugurated era of colonialism in India. Following the Portuguese trading company, other European companies like English, Dutch, French traveled to India and they set up their factories in different parts of India. They confined their activities to trade. But after the year 1707, when there was no capable, strong ruling power in India, these trading companies, these trade groups started interfering in local politics in India. As a result, in 1757, just after 50 years after the death of Aurangzeb, British East India Company engaged in a political struggle in Bengal against its Nawab, Bengal ruler. His title was Nawab Siraj ud Dowla. Siraj ud Dowla, and in a battle called Battle of Plassey. Battle of Plassey in June 1757, British East India Company defeated Siraj ud Dowla and secured control over Bengal. I repeat, in the year 1757, British East India Company, one of the European trading groups in India, they fought a battle against Bengal Nawab Siraj ud Dowla in a battle known as Battle of Plassey and defeated him and captured control over Bengal. So this was the first political battle that the British East India Company fought in India, by which they got some sort of control over a territory in India. Even though rule of Bengal was not directly taken over by British East India Company, so rulers of Bengal were appointed by the British East India Company. So there was a indirect control over Bengal by the British East India Company. And within some years after this, 1757, in 1764, they fought another battle, Battle of Buxar. Battle of Buxar in the year 1764 against three Indian powers. One was Bengal Nawab, second was Awadh Nawab, and third was Mughal ruler. So against three Indian powers, British fought another important battle in 1764, which is known as Battle of Buxar. And British defeated combined forces of three Indian powers, after which they got Diwani right of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. I repeat, in the year 1764, British East India Company fought a battle against three important Indian powers, that was Nawab of Bengal, Nawab of Awadh and the Mughal ruler, and this battle is known as Battle of Buxar, in which British could defeat these combined forces of three Indian powers and they got Diwani right, so revenue collection right in three provinces, that is Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Thus, for the first time, British secured a political power in one part of India, that is in eastern India. Okay, so I repeat, in 1757, British had fought a battle known as Battle of Plassey, and from that year onwards, British started extending their political control in different parts of India, and the initiation was given by the Battle of Buxar in 1764. And by the next 100 years, that is by 1857, British could extend their control over total India by fighting wars and adopting diplomatic measures, diplomacy. I repeat, in 1757, British India Company fought a battle in Bengal which is known as Battle of Plassey. And since then, for the next 100 years, British continued their expansionist or conquering measures in India through wars and diplomatic measures. And by the year 1857, British control over India had been complete. Okay, so they fought large number of wars. For example, they fought against Mysore rulers. This is known as Anglo-Mysore War. Anglo-Mysore Wars. Okay, second, Anglo-Maratha War. Third, Anglo-Sikh War. Through such wars, they extended their political control to different parts of India. Similarly, they resorted to diplomatic measures like subsidiary alliance. And they resorted to doctrine of lapse. By these two measures too, British could extend their control over different parts of India. And by 1857, British control over total parts of India had been complete. So just within 100 years, starting from 1757 and ending up to 1857, British could capture India and bring India under their control. It was against this British conquest, exploitation of Indians and India's resources, there was a great uprising in the year known as the Great Revolt of 1857 or the Sepoy Mutiny. Sepoy Mutiny in 1857. Sepoys were Indian soldiers in British Army. They started this revolt, hence this revolt is known as Sepoy Mutiny. Otherwise it is known as Great Revolt of 1857. Okay, so British could defeat even this Sepoy Mutiny and they strengthened their control over India after suppressing this revolt in 1857. And the period from 1857 to 1947 was the period of India's national renaissance, national resurgence, and India's period of freedom struggle. 1857 to 1947. I said the revolt of 1857 was suppressed by the British and they continued to rule over India, against which Indians made efforts to instill nationalism in India, nationalism among Indians. From the period around 1857 to 1885, the year in which the first nationalist organization on an All India platform known as Indian National Congress was formed, Western educated urban middle class Indians took efforts to bring in nationalism among Indians. They started large number of journals, they published large number of books propagating idea of nationalism. They also started some local political organizations in different parts of India like Bengal, Bombay and Madras. Finally, culmination of all these efforts found expression in 1885 when Indian National Congress was formed in December in Bombay. It was in Bombay. The first All India political platform known as Indian National Congress was formed by some nationalist Indians. And 1885 to 1947, we call it as the period of India struggle for independence, struggle for freedom. I repeat, 1857, there was a great massive uprising against British, but British suppressed this uprising of Indians and continued their exploitation of India, against which Indians propagated ideas of nationalism, started large number of political organizations. As a result of all of this, in 1885, the first All India political platform, All India political organization known as Indian National Congress was formed in Bombay. Thus we say, from the year 1885 to 1947, in Indian history, it is a period of India's struggle for independence. India's struggle for independence. This was the year in which National Congress was formed, and this was the year in which India finally became independent of British rule. We became free from British. We see how it develops. 1885 to 1947. This broad period can be divided into different stages. 1885 to 1905, 1905 to 1915, and 1915 to 1947. Okay, so total this is known as freedom struggle period, period of freedom struggle, freedom struggle. Congress was formed and India became independent. Here, the first 20 years of freedom struggle period is known as the period of moderates. The period of moderates. Why we call this period as the period of moderates? Because Indian National Congress, Indian national movement was dominated by moderate leaders, leaders with moderate political ideas, moderate desires as far as India's status with British colonialism was concerned. Okay. For example, Surendranath Banerjee, Gopalakrishna Gokhale, Firoz Shah Mehta, such rulers were having moderate political desires and objectives. Hence, Congress never demanded complete independence or freedom from the British. During this period, Congress did not demand freedom from the British. The moderate leaders who dominated Indian National Congress demanded certain concessions, political concessions from the British. So we call it as the period of moderatism. And from 1905 to 1915, the period of extremists, the period of extremists or militant nationalism, militant nationalism. During this period, by the beginning of the 20th century, some leaders in India, for example, Tilak, Balagangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandrapal, Lala Lajpat Rai, for Lal, Pal, Bal, these are the short forms for these three leaders. They began to argue some militant ideas in Indian national struggle. So, we say the period from 1905 to 1915 was the period of extremism or militant nationalism, because the Indian national leaders now began to demand Swaraj or self-rule for Indians, self-rule for Indians, which had not been demanded by moderates in the previous 20 years. By this period, they began to demand Swaraj from British, and such similar demands were made to the British by the Indian National Congress leaders. So we call this period as the period of extremism. The second stage of Indian national movement is known as the period of extremism or militant nationalism. Still, they could not become successful in their demands or in their political fight, and by 1915, they lost their vigor and energy. It was by this time a new person, that was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who was an Indian who studied law in England and who had gone to South Africa for some legal practice. He returned to India in 1915. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, whom we call today as Mahatma Gandhiji, he returned to India in 1915. And he took up the leadership of Indian national movement. So the period from 1915 to 1947, we call it as the period of Gandhi, the period of Gandhi or Gandhian era. So first stage of Indian national struggle was the period of moderates, second stage was the period of extremists, and third stage was that of Gandhian leadership. So Gandhi led Indian national movement from the year 1915 around. He landed 1915. Gandhi landed in India from South Africa, and 1916 he established an ashram, Sabarmati Ashram. And 1718 period, 1917-18 period, he engaged in certain local struggles in India, Champaran in Bihar, Ahmedabad, and Kheda, both in Gujarat. Gujarat, this is in Bihar. I repeat, Gandhi landed back India in 1915, and in 1916 he established an ashram known as Sabarmati Ashram in Gujarat. And in the next 2 years, he started engaging in local agitations. First was Champaran agitation in Bihar, second was Ahmedabad in Gujarat, and third was again in Gujarat, place called Kheda. In all these local struggles, Gandhi emerged successful. Gandhi began to emerge as a natural national leader in India. And 1919, there was a agitation against an act passed by British known as Rowlatt Act. Rowlatt Act, which gave powers to the British administrators to arrest any Indian and keep him in detention. Any person could be arrested and can be kept in jail by the British authorities. This was the power granted to British administrators by an act known as Rowlatt Act, against which Gandhi started a satyagraha struggle in 1990. During this struggle, there was a tragedy known as Jallianwala Bagh. Jallianwala Bagh tragedy in 1919 in Punjab. Large number of Indians were killed by the police firing, British firing, and Gandhi decided to fight against the British in a more vigorous manner. So Gandhian period we can divide 1915 to 1947. So this is the first initial 5 years of Gandhian struggle in India. But in 1920, Gandhi launched first All India movement under his leadership. We call it as non-cooperation movement. Non, cooperation movement. We call it in short NCM, non-cooperation movement. And this became the first All India mass political agitation led by launched by International Congress under the leadership of Gandhi. I repeat, in 1920, Gandhiji launched non-cooperation movement, which became the first All India movement launched by Congress under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. And it went up to 1922. 2 years, this movement spread all over India. So it created nationalistic spirit in nook and corner of India. But finally, Gandhi withdrew the movement in 1922. Gandhi launched second All India movement in 1930, which is known as CDM. CDM stands for Civil Disobedience Movement. It was launched in 1930 with Salt March, and it went up to 1934. So CDM became the second All India movement launched by Gandhi, and it was extended from 1930 to 1934. This movement too widened the scope of political agitation in India. National movement began to spread different parts of India, nook and corner of India. Thus Gandhi could extend nationalism in different parts of India by the second movement known as Civil Disobedience Movement. Final movement launched by Gandhi was in 1942, which is known as QIM. QIM stands for Quit India Movement. This was launched by Gandhi in 1942, August. In the month of August 1942, Gandhi and Congress launched this movement, which was the last and final All India movement, which is also known as August Kranti. August Kranti, or Kranti means revolution. August Revolution. So it was launched during the Second World War. So British suppressed Quit India movement with an iron hand. But still, Indians fought against the British. In many places, the agitation became violent. Large number of people were arrested, large number of people were lathi charged, and many of the people were dead. And finally, 1945, the Second World War came to an end, and there was a sea change that took place in the world context. In Britain, Labour Party came to power in England after the Second World War. After the end of Second World War, 1945, Labour Party came to power in England, and Clement Attlee became the Prime Minister. Clement Attlee became the Prime Minister of England, who took a favorable stand towards India's freedom. Second, balance of power in world politics shifted towards America and USSR. Both of these countries stood against colonialism. They argued the colonial powers should grant freedom to their colonies. In Britain, after the war, British economy had been shattered. They were not in a position to continue their rule over India, considering the situation of their economy, and a new party, Labour Party, a new government under Labour Party came to power, and world balance of power shifted towards America and USSR. Both of them opposed colonialism. And in India, the political agitation or Indians had become very politically militant, politically revolutionaries. So all these compelled British to take a decision of leaving India. As a result, in 1947 period, there were discussions between Indian leaders and British leaders, and finally, British decided to leave India in 1947 August 1947, British left India by giving India freedom. So the journey that we started 1707 with the decline of the Mughal dynasty ended in 1947 with India acquiring freedom from British control. 1947 to 2024, the year in which India got independence. Challenges before India. First was India had been partitioned. India had been divided. India was divided into two states, proper India and a new state called Pakistan. Pakistan was created. So 8 million people had traveled to India from the newly created state of Pakistan, that is from eastern Pakistan and western Pakistan. So there was a mass exodus of people to India. And there had been communal clashes in different parts of India. That was the first important development that took place soon after India's independence. Second, there were large number of native states in India. More than 500 native states were there. These were to be integrated with India. These native states like Hyderabad, Junagadh, Kashmir, Travancore, Mysore, so many states had to be integrated with India. And for the newly created nation, we had to devise a political system, a constitution, and a political system had to be devised. The newborn nation emerged successful in all these aspects. We could meet the challenges of partition and mass exodus of people. We could integrate native states with India, and we drafted a constitution with the parliamentary form of government. Thus, soon after independence, the challenges faced by the nation could be overcome by the visionary leadership of the time, and we started our journey through independence from 1947 to 1924. During this period, politically, we were democratic nation, and we conducted in 2024. We have constituted 18th Lok Sabha. So from the freedom to 2024, we are successful in running our democracy in the most successful manner. So we gave what we call universal franchise to all people of beginning 21 years of age. All Indians were given freedom to vote. They were given freedom irrespective of their sex, religion, caste, class. Nothing matters. Any Indian could vote in the general elections if he or she is of 21 years of age. They elected their government, and the last election was conducted in 2024 to constitute 18th Lok Sabha. Similarly, economically we had been exploited by British, and they left India in a degraded manner, economically degraded. We had to construct economic institutions. We had to provide development to different people and different regions of India, for which we devised a plan, a model known as mixed economic model, which went up to 1921 when we went for liberalization of economy. We also adopted planning method, and planning commission was appointed to chart out the priorities of Indian economic development. Right? During the post-independence period, a mixed economic model was followed initially. They went up to 1991 when we shifted to liberalization, and similarly we adopted planning methods to allocate or priorities to different parts, different aspects of economy, for which a planning commission was also established. And in the year 2024, as per the latest Human Development Index, India's position is 134 among 193 nations. From the British destroyed economic situation, we are gradually emerging as an economic power, and by the year 2024, we had a Human Development Index of 134 out of the 193 nations. This is the broad historical development of Indian history from very ancient period to the year 2024. If you don't understand this broad historical development in a clear manner, it will be very much difficult to follow the lessons of Indian history in a systematic and simplified manner. I hope this discussion was very useful for you. We will meet in next video with more updated information regarding Indian history for civil services examination. Thank you.